Welcome back to the Realm 1 Popular Opinions. I am, as a disclaimer, filming this video for the second time, a month after I first failed to film it. The thing was that, as you can see by the title of this video, I read Witch Hat Atelier at the end and beginning of the year. I started on the 31st of December. I finished, I think, like on the 3rd of January. I was obsessed with it. I still am obsessed with it. I am anxiously awaiting the new chapter. I'm slowly collecting the volumes, and I need to discuss it. The thing is, though, since it's been a month, I have been trying not to reread it until I collect the physical volumes, because that is just something that I like to do, and since my birthday is in 2 months, I will collect them by then. I will reread the entire thing immediately. However, I still want to do this video before I do that reread, because there's something about first impressions. There's something very, very interesting to me about first impressions. Now, since it's been a month, I am not in that headspace anymore, because throughout January, I had so much to do for university. I was finishing up the first semester of my graduate university program. The first semester, I finished it in January. And now I am on break for almost the entirety of February. So since I am very much removed from my obsessed state, that video was just an hour-long rant. I think it was even over an hour. But at the end, I realized that the audio was breaking constantly. You couldn't hear half of the video. And if we're being very frank, I'm happy that it got lost, because I think it wasn't as organized as I might have liked it to be. Because when I was still in that like obsessed state with the story, I was just talking left and right, like no tail or end to anything that I was saying. So I hope this will be a little bit more organized, and I hope that I still remember the stuff that I want to say. But since the video failed, I also didn't really want to do it again very soon after. It failed because I would just be repeating myself. So it's been a month. Let's sit down and do it. Let's talk about my new favorite series. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that it might be my favorite manga. Like behind Nausicaa, obviously, but I think it might be my favorite. It is my favorite in terms of art style. I can tell you that. It's absolutely number one in terms of art style. That's exactly the kind of art style that I like, and I love it to bits. So let's talk about it, hopefully in a more calm and organized manner, because last time I just sat and talked to myself for over an hour, and I don't think it was really that constructive. The first part of the video that I also dedicated it to the last time is just an overall spoiler-free discussion of the plot, what it's about, and maybe perhaps selling it to you, because the rest of the video is absolutely going to be spoiler-filled. I have my gingerbread latte. I am prepared to talk about it. Now, what is it about? I will first tell you that when I was introduced to this series by various booktubers who don't even read that much manga ordinarily, but they all talked about it for years now, they said it's this cozy, fun, witchy time. And I will tell you immediately that I did not know what this was about from how they spoke about it. They all said it's about this girl who doesn't have magic, but then finds out that she can use it and goes off to learn, and their shenanigans ensue. That is, in fact, correct, but I feel like the vibe of this series has been very mismarketed to me in particular, because I didn't get it from like manga or anime sites. I got it from BookTube. So, and since these people mostly, I don't think, have read past volume 3, maybe 4. All I've seen actually recommended is volume 1, by the way. I don't think they read much further into the series, because these are people who don't usually read manga, so they didn't read it quickly. And the most I've seen, I think, recommended is volume 3. This story starts off in a simple way, in a very simple way. However, it takes a turn very quickly. Now, if you're not into manga or anime, although why would you watch this video if you weren't? This genre, I would never call cozy comforting, because while it has those moments, halfway through the current publication volume number, it gets dark and actually very bleak, and it keeps getting worse. And I would say that calling it this cozy, comforting, light series would just really missell it. Because while, yes, it starts off that way, once it stops being that way, it doesn't let up. Like, I don't think that from volume 6 until the end, which is, 83 chapters now, or 13 volumes, it doesn't let up. I don't think I've had 5 seconds of comfort since I read volume 5. And it has to be said. It has to be said because you should go into this not expecting a light, carefree time. Because while it has those elements, it absolutely has those elements, even when it's bleak, it's not hopeless. It's not hopeless. It's just not cozy, comforting, light, and stakes-free all the time, because it most certainly does have stakes, and it gets very dark, and it gets into very heavy stuff that I think you wouldn't expect in the beginning. I certainly didn't expect all that stuff in the beginning, because when I read it, I was like, oh, it's little girls. It's going to be... I went into this similarly how I went into the TV series Little Witch Academia. I thought this was like, a story for 7-year-olds that I will enjoy, but it probably won't really be for adults. It is for adults. In many of its themes, in many of its discussions, and many of the things that it tries to tackle. So while some of the main characters are young children who are like 11 or 12 years old, it is most definitely not, how would I even put it, just for children. Or not even at all for children, depending on some of the later volumes. So while it's not gore or horror in as many other manga are, it is dark, and I feel like I have to highlight that in the beginning. So what is it actually about? Yes, it is about a young girl in a world where only the people who are born as witches can use magic. However, and none of this is a spoiler, it's all in the first chapter of the manga, she finds out that is not the case. It is just that the witches keep it a secret how to do magic from ordinary people, so that they believe that they can't do magic, and they're protecting magic in this way. She finds out how the magic is done. She makes a mistake, and she is supposed to have her memory wiped, but the witch who picks her up decides not to do it, because they are going to figure out how to save her mother, who was a victim of her mishandling the magic that she found out she can do, and he takes her under his wing, and she becomes one of his apprentices. All of this is just the first chapter, and we move on from there. So I think that is it for spoiler free. The one thing that I can say about selling it to you is, if you are really into high fantasy, world building, magic systems, and just enjoy that type of book, this is the perfect manga series for you, because I didn't expect it to get as high fantasy as it does. I thought it would be just a silly time with a silly magic system. It gets into depth about how things are done. There are hard rules. There are ways that you can do the magic. There are ways you can do the magic incorrectly. There's world building. The society is intricate. The bad guys, or the villains of the story, are also in a league of their own. Who runs the society also matters. How they behave towards ordinary people matters. There's consequences to the world building. It genuinely at some point felt to me like I was reading a high fantasy novel. Like, if I wasn't looking at the images, this could very easily be a fantasy novel, and I would eat up every single page. So if you like that sort of thing, you will adore it. If you like really pretty art styles, you will absolutely also adore it, because you can tell that this isn't her first time drawing. I think she also draws for someone in the US, either DC or Marvel or whatever. You can tell that, how usually manga artists in the beginning have to evolve their art style. You can tell she already has an art style in the beginning and it stays beautiful throughout. There are so many random panels. I will probably include them on the screen where they're just detailed backgrounds, detailed character art. That's just the beginning of a chapter or something. Like, she goes so hard without actually having to do so. It's stunning. And the third thing that might sell it to you, obviously, is the characters. It's been a while since I've loved a friendship found family group this much, where I love every single member of the friendship group, not equally, but I love all of them. I think it hasn't happened to me to this extent since The Witcher. This family means everything to me, and if a single one of them is harmed, I will feel that pain deeply. So yes, if all of this sounds great to you, but do be warned about the overall vibe of it before going in, do pick it up. I hope I've somewhat convinced you. And let's get into the spoiler part of the video, because that's what I wanted to do all along. And I hope this was a bit more concise than it was last time, because I know that it wasn't concise last time. Welcome to the spoiler section. Let's have a lot of fun with this. Also, forgive me for holding the cup. It's just so my hands have something to do, because I am a very hands-on person when I talk, and I don't really like that. So, comparisons to other stories. I will try and keep this brief, because upon reflection, I yapped on and on about this section when it isn't even that interesting, and it isn't something revolutionary or new that I'm making the comparisons to. So we will just keep this quick. This is the comp title section of the video, and while this will be mostly spoiler free, if you don't really like theme spoilers, then this is it for the video for you. So, the first comparison that I will be very, very brief about is with Jujutsu Kaisen. That is because when I started reading this, I thought that the main mentor character was a Gojo dupe. I genuinely thought that, because they look the same in certain shots that I will hopefully include. He looks very much like young Gojo, specifically at the beginning of season 2, or in the prequel. No, not the prequel, but basically in that beginning of season 2 section. I thought they looked identical. I genuinely thought they looked identical. And when I saw one of the covers and saw that the character in Witch Hat had also blue eyes, I was like, okay, this is a Gojo dupe. However, the relationship was also similar with his pupils. Like, he finds a young person who is thrust into that world against their will mostly, and the higher-ups do recommend taking care of that young person and removing them from this world, but the mentor sticks their neck out for the young person and becomes their mentor and develops the greatest bond with this specific pupil. However, since Witch Hat came out in 2016 and Jujutsu Kaisen came out in 2018, it is not a Gojo dupe. I don't know if Gege actually read this or knows about this, because he might not. I'm pretty sure that every author in every country doesn't know about everything that's ever been published. But since Witch Hat is actually quite popular, I would be interested in knowing whether he just, I don't know, took inspiration for the character design, because the way that their hair looks, the way that they pose sometimes, the glasses, just, they look so similar. So this is actually the reverse, where I read something that was written before Gojo was created, and finding that out was very interesting, because I now would be very intrigued to know whether Gege actually saw the design for qifrey. So that was the first comparison. The second one is a bit more style-wise, where we have the comparison with Noragami. I will include some character comparisons, because they look very similar sometimes. And I love the art styles of both of these series. By the way, Noragami is famously one of the art styles that I also really, really love. However, the thing that I wanted to compare here, I'm sorry about the really fast car, is the dynamic. I really wanted to compare that this series has a similar dynamic where at first you think it's super goofy, but then it goes off the rails and just doesn't let up with its stress, high stakes plotline. But it also has those like brief interludes of having a good time, of being a little bit relaxing in between all the big stuff that is in fact happening and taking a toll on you as the reader if you're binging the series like I did. So in terms of themes and in terms of character design, I would compare it to Noragami, but Noragami is way more rooted in Japanese folklore and their culture, while this is very much inspired by France, and the world building is wholly unique. It's not inspired by anything, I think, specific to France. It's just that the names and the world itself are pretty French, French inspired. And I think that's it for the comparisons. I think I had a third one when I first did the video, but now I no longer have any comparisons. I recall. Let's just compare it to the other thing that I constantly confuse it with, Little Witch Academia. It is, by the way, one of my favorite animes of all time. Also an unexpected surprise and a very, very well written series. The comparison with this is very obvious. There's a young witch who isn't from the witch world, but she gets into the witch world. There's also a female character who becomes her best friend, even though she was, or if you're so inclined, romantically interested in her. But anyway, the best friend who hated her first and was kind of a bully and didn't want to welcome her into the world, but she becomes her like number one defender. There's also the mentor that the main character really, really looks up to and wants to learn magic from and trusts deeply. There's also the dark story that the mentor has, that both of them have. It's obviously a bit more severe in Witch Hat than in Little Witch Academia, but that is how it goes. I'm not sure if there's any other comparisons, but I was constantly reminded of this. There's also, the world building, although this also has sort of a real world alongside it, and the magic systems are very different. So the comparison isn't that strong, but in terms of themes, in terms of character motivations and character tropes, it was very similar. So constantly, especially last time, I think I called it Little Witch Academia at least 3 times. It also has a similar title, sort of, so you kind of can confuse them, but I love both of them for very different reasons. So if these comp titles are actually something that you want to pick up after hearing me talk about it, that would be great, because this is a fantastic series. But that is not why we are here. So let's just move on into the spoiler section of this video, because that is what I am most excited to talk about even a month later. Let us start out with the character section of this video, which is actually very exciting. So we're just going to cover like the main friend group, although I do love the side characters, specifically Belderut. I think that's his name because I read the online translations, so the names changed around a lot. I think that's his name, but basically Qifrey's mentor. Loved that guy. I really, really did. Some of the other guards I also really enjoyed. But now my memory is a bit more hazy on the side characters. So let's just move on to the main characters. And I did rank them in order of how much I grew attached to them. So first we have Tetia. She is absolutely at the bottom of this list because I feel like we know the least about her. Everyone else had their tragic moment. She doesn't have a tragic moment. That doesn't make her a bad character. I still adore her. Everyone in this list I adored. Do not take this the wrong way. I'm just ranking them in order of how attached I got to them. So her not having trauma is great for her, actually. She's a happy little girl, and she's a ray of sunshine, and her creative magic is just a sight to behold, and I love her. However, she felt the most underdeveloped and very one-dimensional as a character because we just simply don't know much about her. So when we do learn more about her, or she has an important role to play in the future, which she definitely will, given that in the last few volumes she met the prince, I really am looking forward to getting more from her. She's just at the bottom of this list because I have nothing. Don't feel connected to her in a personal way. I just objectively love her as a character in the story. The next one, possibly expectedly or unexpectedly, is Riche. I like her a lot more. We're already getting into I like these people quite a bit. I like her a lot more because we do get a lot from her, and she's a very quirky and eccentric character. But the thing is, I feel like there's not much to her character. Like, do not take any of this negatively. I'm begging you, because I love all of them. I keep repeating myself even though I'm criticizing. However, there's not much to her. Like, her one personality trait is being quirky and strange and eccentric and really, really kind. That one specific storyline where she saves the boy who becomes the wolf. Do not ask me to name any of the characters outside of the main the main 5 or 6. Loved that storyline. It was absolutely excellent. She's a beautiful person and I adore her. I adore her relationship with her mentors, with her friends. She's very supportive and I love her, and her thing with her brother and with her family and how she escaped that situation. Loved that storyline. However, there's not much else to her. And also, I think because I've read it in a very short amount of time, she isn't that present after that bit of her storyline is unraveled. So in the latter half of what I read, she isn't around that much. I think she's actually around way less than Tetia because Tetia has the role with the prince. So I feel like I just haven't seen her in a while. And especially now after a month, and because the second half is way more ingrained into my head currently, I just feel like I don't have that much of a lingering connection with her. Still love her though, and I cannot wait for more from her in the future, similar to Tetia. We've made it to the last of the bottom 3, and that is olruggio. I'm still not sure how to say that because I think it said orruggio on the translation that I read, but I'm pretty sure it's olruggio in the official manga. So either way, this character, this second mentor and father of the group, the watchful eye of Qifrey's atelier. I love him. I really do. I really, really do. However, he's just not a character archetype that I enjoy that much. I've found it with time, which is very ironic, considering that I am actually this type of person. I've started to enjoy characters who are a bit more hopeful and a bit more a bit less like gruff and tough. I don't know how to put it into words because I feel like he isn't that stereotypical of like a depressed character where he's like moping and he sleeps a lot and he drinks a lot, you know, that type of anime manga character. I feel like he isn't that typical, so it's a bit odd saying it that way, but he just isn't a character type that I enjoyed that much in this specific story. Now, I love him as a mentor. I love him as a mentor for the girls. I think that even though he isn't that specific rank of being like a witch mentor, he's just the watchful eye of the atelier. I love his role with the girls and how much he actually cares for them and teaches them and is always there to help them if they need it or instruct them or give them advice. I simply adore him as a person. He's just not my favorite. That's all I can say. The only complaint I have about him is that he's just not my personal favorite, but I adore him. I adore his relationship with all the other main characters, and I do love him. I think that his magic is developed in such a unique way. Like the fact that the main character fell in love with magic because of his spell that the pave stones like light up when you walk over them. I think that's beautiful. And he's my dearly beloved. He's just not my personal favorite. We've made it to top 3. And obviously, you know who they are if you've read the series. Which, if you haven't read the series and you're watching this video all the way through, I salute you because I also do that. I do not care about spoilers, and I will actually be more interested in a recommendation someone is making if I find the spoiler talk interesting. But I am speaking as if you've read it. So, agott. I do not know her last name. Please do not ask me, actually. Also, I never mentioned her as agott because, again, in the translation I read, at first it was Agatha, but they changed it halfway through. So do not do not listen to the names that I use because it depends on the translation. Obviously, I'm not sure what the official one is since I haven't read the official translation yet. So love her. Similarly to the comparison I made earlier with Diana from Little Witch Academia, she is the mean girl. The mean girl, but not really a mean girl. She doesn't welcome the main character. She's very solitary in the beginning. She doesn't ask for help. She doesn't accept help. She wants to do everything on her own, through her own effort, and she wants to prove herself for one reason or another. She's also from a famous family, so it's a very similar character archetype. one that's very popular and one that I didn't used to enjoy because it was really leaning into the bully thing. But I've really liked this recent development of characters who aren't bullies, they're just overly self-sufficient and they really rely on their hard work, and they're very annoyed when the main character gets by just on talent. I actually relate very much to characters who do things through effort and are annoyed by people who are lucky or have talent. So I quite like that character archetype, actually, the older that I get. So I love her. I adore her. She is excellent. I love seeing the development. I love seeing the development every time when this kind of character learns to accept help and to rely on friends and to cooperate and to actually ask for help from their mentor. Now, the top three, I will connect a little bit because I will talk about the top three's relationship with each other. So her relationship with Coco, beautiful, lovely, it develops into a beautiful, wonderful friendship. They actually become best friends, despite being very on opposing sides in the beginning. You can interpret this relationship any way you like. That is absolutely your business, but I am always way more inclined to treat relationships as friends rather than romantic interests because I am just geared that way. I will always assume that you're really close friends rather than secretly having a crush on each other because I value friendships. I value friendships, unlike the majority of fandom online where it seems that it's just ships and couples. So that is your personal preference, whether they are friends or future lovers. That is up to you. I will just call them best friends for now. So I do love their relationship either way. And I think it's very sweet when they work together because she learns to rely on Coco's luck and talent, and Coco learns to take advantage of her skill because she's the idea person, similar to, again, Little Witch Academia. She's the idea creative person, whereas Agott has the skills. So, love her. Adore her. Let's move on to the top two. My second favorite is the titular character, Coco, which this feels like an awards show. So as soon as I say the second favorite, you know who my favorite is. But that's fine. Let's talk about Coco first. I have grown as a reader, and I've really started to love the main character who just doesn't give up and is fearless. I don't know why, because you used to be annoyed by that type of main character when you were a kid. At least I was. But I've realized that I really like the very to the point, simple, we're going to push through this, we're going to push forward, we're not going to give up, we're always going to come up with a solution. I've really grown to like that type of main character. They're just very hopeful, and I really like that. Similarly, again, to Atsuko Kagari. I will keep making that comparison because they just, now that I'm talking about it, really do remind me of the main characters in that series. I'm sorry, I'm just clicking on my computer because it keeps the light going. Yes, so Coco, I adore her. Despite the tragedy that occurs in the first chapter for her, which is actually devastating, like, she is responsible for turning her mother to stone by using magic, a thing that she's loved and wanted to pursue all her life. So it's a very tragic beginning to her story. But she, like, gets back on her feet, she learns magic, she persists, she uses her creativity and her resolve and just not giving up to catch up to the others and actually become the same rank as them after the test. She gets along with them very well. They try and help her, and she doesn't really resent them when they refuse to help her. She's just that type of main character where, like, she knows why she isn't welcome. Like, I will say one thing, and that is for for like 11 or 12-year-olds. I think they might be 12-year-olds, maybe 13 later on in the story. They're a little bit too maybe self-aware. I feel like she understands the stakes and repercussions and consequences of everything a little bit too well for such a young character. But I don't care. I don't care because I love her so much. And her relationships with different people, like Custos, like Tartar. I almost said Tartar. I think it's Tarta, however you want to say it. I'm going to switch between how I say it. But her relationship with all the people who don't use magic. She inspires people who don't use magic to use magic, like Tarta. She helps custos without any issues. She really, really wants to help people, but also has like the ability to be able to tell when she can't help someone and when she needs help, when she needs advice, when she needs to confide in someone, when she needs the help of an adult, when she needs to like take a step back, and when there's something that she can't do. She's that type of main character where she doesn't, like in a majority of like popular anime and manga, where the character's pretty much stupid, essentially. They just go straight in without really thinking things over. She isn't that type of character. Like, I love her actually, and she considers things carefully, like even things that hurt her, like having to hide magic from people who would be able to use it, but she can't tell them that they're able to use it. Like, she hides it and she does her job well, even though it physically hurts her. And I love that. And I love how she, even though she continually loses faith in witches, she still trusts her mentors and the people around her. She doesn't discriminate in terms of like, all witches are bad because all witches are hiding magic. She knows that they have different intentions behind hiding magic in that way. She's also not afraid to think outside the box and to say what needs to be said, even to people in power, like Belderut, for example. And I am getting out of breath just talking about her because I love her so much. Now, her relationship with Qifrey, who will be number one, I will talk about in the next section, because that is, in fact, my favorite thing about this series. So let's talk about Qifrey first. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The shot went off sooner than I was supposed to. Qifrey, my actual main character, favorite character of the series, surprising no one. The male character who's a little bit out there, a little bit flamboyant, a little bit of a twink. I don't want to say it that way, but that type of character who like looks very thin but is also muscular, and looks like a clown a lot of the time, but is actually very clever and calculated and careful about things, is just, it's my favorite type of male character. Okay, it is what it is. It's just my type. It's just my type. So I love him. Now, let's move past the looks, because I will say that I was immediately attracted to him as a character and how he's drawn, how he's built, how he's presented to you. I was drawn to him from the get-go because of what he looks like. That's, if he had dark hair, that would be exactly my type. But moving past me having a crush on his character design, he grew on me as a character when we learn his backstory. Now, I'm not one of those people anymore, at least I was when I was younger, who's immediately drawn to a character when they have a tragic backstory, because that could turn out to be very stupid, and there's not more to that character than their tragic backstory. However, I was expecting a tragic backstory because obviously he was going to have one. That's just how these things work, and it's hinted very early on that there's a dark side to him. His backstory is incredibly tragic and extremely depressing. He was experimented on as a child. His eye was taken, and then he was literally locked up to be buried alive and drowned. So, you know, it's a very severe, tragic backstory. But despite that, and we go back to me liking hopeful, really good, kind-hearted characters, I think the thing that really gets me about him is that quote, I might put it on the screen, is the whole, like, there are people who have tasted poison and they will do everything to stop others from tasting it. You know, one of those things that's like, just because you were in pain, you're not going to continue on inflicting it. You're just going to make sure that no one feels the pain that you felt. He's that type of character, where he's really good and kind and attentive, and he takes such good care of these girls, and he offers it, I think, to a few other characters that they can like come and be at his atelier and under his teaching, because he just, it's not that he takes in rejects, it's that he takes in anyone who needs him. He's extremely, extremely kind and generous and caring, and he is very attentive of the girls' needs. Like, he will talk to them individually, ask them what's wrong, help them, advise them. help them deal with whatever they need help with individually. It's not like he ignores one of them just because Coco showed up. Like his individual moments when he talks to Agott or Riche or whoever else is so lovely to me, because even though he's probably not that much older than them, all the mentors in these series are extremely young. I wouldn't say he's older than 30, like there's no way. I'd actually be very doubtful of him being much older than like 25 or 26, but definitely not older than 30. And he's just that type of good person that even though he holds a lot of pain and trauma and hatred and an explosive need for revenge that actually bites him in the ass at that first point when he sees the brim hats, like he gets extremely hurt and he leaves them to fend for themselves because of how full of hate he is. And again, rightfully so, first of all, but second of all, he might lose magic unless he gets his eye back because his other eye is losing sight, and that made me so upset. That made me irrationally upset that he could potentially lose his magic. But I'm getting off topic here. He's just that type of character who, even though he has a severely dark background, he's just always persisted to be better than the trauma that he experienced. Like, he was his master's best pupil, even though he was a little rebellious, but Belderut adores him. He takes care of his girls in a very similar way. He is very good friends. Again, friends or not, that is your business with olruggio. They're very good partner characters, whichever way you want to look at it. And I could talk about him for days. The thing is, I did have a crush on him as a visual character, but it went beyond that. It went beyond that even before we learned his backstory, but when we learned his backstory and how he deals with it, and when it just kept building up to his development as a person, when he grows closer to Coco and how that affects him and affects his need for revenge and to put it above the girl's safety, I just fell in love with the character as a whole, and he might, and I dare say this, like, be up there. Like, up there with my favorite characters of all time. Like, I think he actually might be up there now. Which, if you don't know, I think I said that before, but if we're just looking at anime and manga, Dazai is my favorite character of all time. I think qifrey, like, might be up there. Like, if Dazai's here, qifrey might be, like, here. Like, they're very close. So, let's just move on to the final relationship, because I could talk about this man for days, and let's not do that. Let's talk about the last section of this video, which is coincidentally my favorite, as if I didn't organize it. And that is qifrey and Coco together. I will put up the images on the screen. I don't know how I'll edit this yet. You'll see. Either way, qifrey and Coco is the thing that pushed this series to, like, god tier for me, because their relationship elevates them both as characters and the character writing as a whole, because the slow development from yes, he is going to take care of her, to her putting her trust in him when they're in danger, and to her clinging to him in times of need, and to him learning to put all of them first instead of putting his need for revenge first and perhaps endangering them and himself. I am not exaggerating when I say that these two saved each other's lives in so many ways. In so many ways. Someone was at the door, I'm sorry. In so many ways. Like, she saved his entire life by changing him, by forcing him to view the world differently and to view his pupils differently. Like, he risked himself so many times for her, and for the first time near the end of the story, which is the scene that made me tear up, when they fight together and she gets hurt on the beach and he feels that panic for the first time so strongly that he forgets about revenge and swoops in to protect her, and then tears up when he tells her, like, I know you're not going to listen to me, but please listen to me, because I just now realized how important you are to me and how much everything else doesn't matter as long as you're safe. And Belderud laughs and says, now you can see what it's like to have a pupil like that. and how much he cares for her. When he tears up and just slumps onto the bed and is like, I know you're not going to listen to me, but please listen to me. I've never felt panic like that before. Like my blood chilled when I thought you were hurt or killed or whatever. When she takes the blow for him, I remember that scene extremely well, even though it's been a month, because I teared up at that moment alongside him because I realized how much their relationship got to me. And we're looking at the Coco side of it because, again, how much she trusts him and how much faith she has in him, that when like her and Tata are being threatened by the brim hats and Custos and the bracelet thing and everything, she goes to him for help. Like, she tells him what's going on. She trusts him not to betray her or to take actions that they're not allowed to take or whatever. She trusts him, and he is so touched when he sees that she trusts him so much in that specific way. And I remember these scenes vividly, as if I read them yesterday, because of what an impact they had on me. Also, this is just one thing that happens often in these series with like mentor-mentee relationships, but often the character doesn't really spend that much time with their mentor, you know? It's like they do matter to them, but they're also part of a group that the mentor is obviously often not a part of. But they actually, like, Shirahama focuses on Coco and Qifrey a lot. Like, in the second half, I think she spends way more time with him than with anyone else. Like, they are together a lot. Throughout the fights, they're alone together. They're fighting together. Like, he protects her. She takes the blow for him. They're together a lot. They come up with plans a lot. Like, I feel like they're just together in a way that a lot of characters with their mentors in stories aren't, which means that Shirahama really wanted to put emphasis on this relationship and not just make it like a casual random thing. And it was intentional that they're so close and their bond is important to her, and that means that it's important to me. Okay. It's important to me whenever they're on screen together. It's beautiful. By the way, here is the image of Coco and Qifrey that I keep by my bedside. Also, I think as after I finish the series, my lock screen on my phone is currently Coco and Qifrey. I put like widgets with images of the two of them from the manga on both my phone and my tablet. Like, they mean so much to me, because whether they're a sibling dynamic, parent-child, eventually friends when she grows up a little, I don't mind whatever dynamic they have. But their deep care for each other and how they just saved each other's lives, literally and figuratively, and how they are always there for each other and trust each other so deeply. I could talk about that for days as well. I could talk about that for days, but that is my favorite aspect of this series, and it matters so, so, so much to me that I don't think you even know. I need to stop talking, but I hope I've sufficiently expressed my opinions on these two as characters that we can move on. However, I'm trying to think up like frantically if there's anything else that I want to say. I don't remember all the scenes, obviously. I just remember the ones that really, really impacted me because it's been a month now. But maybe upon reread, I will talk about them again. You never know. This is, and I will now say it even though January just ended, this is going to be my favorite thing of the year, because it's been a while since I've really fallen in love with a story to this extent and thought about the character to this extent. Like, all month, I've wanted to reread it. I had to stop myself from rereading it. I randomly read the first chapter the other day, and I had to physically restrain myself from rereading it. I am going to wait for the physical volume, then I will reread it again, but you know that something has cemented itself as my favorite thing of all time if I immediately want to revisit it and go back to it. And I constantly think about it, and even though I was in university and very busy, this didn't leave my mind. Let's go on to the last part of the video, which is a bit of theories for the future. The last section of the video, onwards. Theories. Now, I had way more theories, obviously, when I just read it. But before chapter 84, which I think is going to be the ending of the fight that we've been watching, because I think it actually ended in the last chapter. There was just a bit of a cliffhanger. But also, by the way, in case anyone's interested, the manga is coming out on K Manga. I think that's the app in America or whatever. I have no access to that. So I have to wait for someone to upload it either with their own translation or to upload the official version, but I am impatient. Like, I picked up this series right after a month hiatus. Like, the last chapter came out in December, and now I'm waiting for the chapter in February. So I picked it up right when she went on hiatus, I think because she went to France. Either way, theories. I have less of them than I did last time, but I'm still going to try and think up a few of them. Obviously, the main one is the thing with the brim hats. I think that nothing's really happened with the brim hats yet. We've had very few encounters with them, and they've been very short. So while this is going to play out, I think, throughout the entire series, I am a little bit fearful of Coco going over to them, because that has been foreshadowed, and it is a little bit expected, because they're the ones who thrust her into the world of magic. They gave her the magic book and ink, and they want her on their side. But I don't want it to happen, simply because I feel like it's very, very expected. I feel like I don't want her to lose faith to that extent. And also, this is just a personal thing, I don't want her to be away from Qifrey for so long. Like, I don't want Qifrey to have to suffer through her, like his everything currently in the story, to go over to his enemies. I do not want to suffer through that. So Shirahama, if you don't do that, I will love you. I will love you for eternity. But that is just my own personal fear, because there's several ways that this story could go, and a lot of them are very expected, like her going over to the brim hats, or her losing faith in the magic society, or any of those things. But the thing that keeps me guessing whether this would happen or not is, I think, because how much she cares about the main group and Qifrey as a mentor. I don't think she would really turn her back on them. I think that's the only thing, like, holding her back. Also, which I'm just making that a prediction, but in regards to, like, Qifrey losing sight and losing his ability to do magic, I think it's possible that that could happen, and then they're going to have to get his eye back or whatever. I think it's possible that he isn't the one to do so, and that he loses his magic, hopefully temporarily, and then Coco goes over to the brim hats to, like, find his eye and bring it back to him. Either way, I have a feeling that she's going to do the cliche thing where the mentor is out of the story for a section of time, so the young characters can, like, go on their own without any help and prove themselves, which I don't like in stories in general. I think it's lazy to have a smart, capable, powerful character and then just sideline them, because why did you make them in the first place? I think I want this group to remain intact as much as possible. I don't want Qifrey to just be MIA for half the story until Coco and the others get his eye back. So I'm hoping that all of these things aren't true. I'm really hoping they aren't true. Also, in terms of the main girls having, well, not love interests, but, like, male counterparts, like Tetia has the prince, Riche has the boy who's been, like, corrupted by the brim hats. I think that's it. But yeah, like, male counterparts that they're going to partner up with. There's also Tarta and Kustos and that kind of stuff. I also don't know what it was with Kustos that made Qifrey, like, not be able to look at him, but collapse with a headache. What does Kustos have to do with his eye? I really, really, really impatiently want to know. But I think there's going to be something, obviously, with the prince and with the boy whose name I can't remember, who became a wolf. And I think that's it for the theories, because I'm drawing a blank now, obviously, because those are just the major things that I've been thinking about in anticipation for chapter 84. Also, if anyone knows, this is, like, the end of this section, but if anyone knows, why is volume 14 not out yet? Because I saw on, like, Shirahama's Twitter that she was hyping up the release of volume 13, which I just got yesterday, by the way. I pre-ordered it, and it got here, like, 2 weeks after the pre-order, but that doesn't matter. I got it. I have volume 13. Why doesn't volume 14 already exist in Japan? Because I think currently there's so many chapters out after volume 13 that you could fill up volumes, both 14 and 15, so it's a little bit strange that volume 14 isn't out in Japan yet, but that's kind of it. I think that's it for the theories. So let's just wrap up the video, and that's going to be spoiler free, so I'm going to mark up the sections. that is it. That is it for the video. I hope the vibe is a bit better because last time I was in another room and the lighting was horrible. In the meantime, I got the ring light so you could actually see my face while I speak. I hope it's a little bit more cozy of a vibe. I hope that editing me does at least a decent enough job of putting everything in the video that I want to put in the video. I know it's a little bit more effort, but she's going to have to do it because I want it to look kind of nice because this does matter that much to me. I am happy that I think I was a bit more concise. You obviously won't know, but I think I was a lot more concise and calm about it than I was then because I was just pouring everything out of me, which is why I don't think that hour that I was yapping for was wasted because like I genuinely poured all my thoughts and feelings out. I actually think I teared up once because I was still in the thing, which I'm glad I didn't do this time because outside of like very specific vlogs, which I haven't done in ages, I think Revenge of the Sith was the last one. I haven't cried in videos in a long time, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I don't really like doing that. I used to, but I don't really like doing that now. So I hope it was enjoyable. I hope it was informative. I hope if you love the series, you got to share that love with me. I hope if you don't love it yet, you maybe read it because the anime is coming out this year, which that's another thing. I am so insanely excited about it, and I cannot wait to see who the voice actors will be. I cannot wait to see because I'm someone who loves voices. Voices are like the thing that I notice the most and like the most about actors or people or celebrities or whatever in media that I consume. Voices are the thing that like I notice and like the most, which is why anime actually like is something that I love so much because the voice actors in Japan are obviously insanely good. Like whatever school they all finish over there, it does its job very well. So I wonder who they're going to cast for the characters. Qifrey in particular, I really want to know who his VA will be because I can't imagine him having a deeper voice. And I do have like my own preference for his voice, but I'm not going to say it until it comes out because I don't think they can go wrong. All of the voice actors in Japan are excellent, and whoever does the casting for all the characters in the animes are also really good at their job. But I can't wait for news. I think by the trailer, obviously it looks great, but it might not look that great when the anime comes out because that studio apparently, I've read famously, is very odd with its adaptations. And I don't know when in 2025 it's gonna come out. It could be a year from now, but I am insanely excited. I think I watched that trailer like 4 times since I finished the series. I will be sat every week when the episodes come out. I will probably download them immediately and rewatch them. But in terms of the anime adaptation, I don't know how much they're going to adapt, but I think because she actually has very long chapters and very long volumes, it could just be like the first section of the story before it gets serious, unless it's like a 25 episode season, which I don't think they're going to do. I think they could probably adapt like the first few volumes that are still very light and not that dark. So that's it for the anime adaptation. That's it for the video. I do really hope you enjoyed it because I put a little bit more effort into how I worded things and how I organized it and just planned out the video. I never write out my videos and how I want to divide them and what I want to talk about, but I did this time because I really wanted to make a gush video while still keeping it a bit more organized. So maybe it was actually a lucky break that the last video got lost because it didn't look good and it wasn't really well put together. So I will see you in the next video.